Welcome back, shooters. Brian and Adam here, and we are here to review the very last review of The Last Dance. Brian, it's over. How you feeling?
Yeah, as we talked about before we got on, it was one of those things where I was watching these two episodes just trying to take in as much as I could, knowing that the end was near. I was just trying to relive it and absorb it and remember and try to pick out as many little details and stuff from it. And it was awesome. I mean, it's something that it could keep going and keep going. And I know we've talked about it on here before, but I feel like there's a lot of little stories and content from behind the scenes. I'm sure they use most of it, but there's a lot more that they could have shared with us that we would have really enjoyed as hoop heads and wanting to know the behind the scenes of everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Jordan had a little something to say about those smaller stories behind the scenes. But yeah, I would have enjoyed that as well. And yeah, I mean, I think that our number 9 or episode number 9 was probably the one that went by the quickest for me. I don't know if it was just because we talked about it last week, but I guess last 3-4 episodes were a little more during our time of the bigger fandom of Jordan, of the Bulls, of maybe basketball in general. But that hour went by super quick, and yeah, I mean, I think I could have watched at least maybe 10 more episodes of that whole documentary for sure.
Well, one of the things too, and I think the reason with 9 and why it went so fast is because the storylines are incredible. I mean, that's the biggest thing with this. I mean, you could drill down on a lot of these storylines and just keep coming up with stuff. I mean, that's what's just so wild about it. And I think with 9 we had so many different storylines going on top of the game footage and going back to what was going on. And so that's why I would agree that I felt like 9 moved by so quickly, because we had this story. The flu game, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about, and then the Steve Kerr story on top of the game footage and stuff. And so there was a lot in 9. It was awesome. And like we talked about before, then you get into 10 and you're just trying to take it all in, and a lot of game footage of that series and that championship. And so just a ton of fun. Like I said, I would have want to see more bus rides and some of that stuff, but I'll take any minute they were willing to give us.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, I was doing the same thing during 10. I've mentioned it a couple times, but it almost reminds me of watching the last couple episodes of Game of Thrones when I was watching them, where you're just like, God, this is going to be over. This is so good, but it's going to be over. So just nobody talk to me, that type of thing. But yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, the flu game, that really wasn't a flu game, right? I mean, sounds like I'm happy, but I would love to know what pizza joint that was in Utah. But yeah, his trainer said it best. When there's 5 dudes showing up to bring your pizza, there's probably next to 0% chance that I would even sniff that pizza, especially before a finals game. Like that's crazy.
No, I agree. I mean, that's something that, well, first of all, I mean, they said like 10 o'clock at night. How is there only one place open at 10 o'clock at night? Like
Thought the
that's
same.
like I didn't understand. I'm like, really? And I know things are a little bit different out in Utah, but I was still like, one pizza place that's open. And then, like you said, yeah, 5 guys show up and are looking and seeing what's going on. And I mean, it's that old adage: you have that feeling in your gut, then you just got to go with it. And his his assistant or trainer, whoever, was like, I don't have a good feeling about this. And then I also like how Jordan's like, yeah, I was the only one. I ate the pizza or whatever.
Everybody else was smart enough not to eat it, but I was not. And then 3 hours later, just insanely throwing up. Which, I mean, we've probably all been there with food poisoning, and to play a pickup game with that is next to almost impossible. But you're playing in the NBA Finals, and you do what he did is pretty incredible for sure.
I like to, and I think I tweeted out about it when they were interviewing Coach Sloan afterwards, and he was like, "Wait, he was sick? Like, I didn't even know he was sick. Like, I thought he played a good game." I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you didn't either hear beforehand, someone's in your ear saying, hey, did you hear about him today?" And then secondly, I mean, you could visually, I mean, you're not watching the game, but he kind of proved that in the next episode too, when he didn't realize that they only scored 54 points with the
And And if he didn't know Jordan was sick, he needs new assistants because that is prime time assistant job right there.
Absolutely. And that, I don't know. I also, I think I tweeted about this too. They knew. I mean, at the end, they doubled off of Jordan late in that game. Why would you double off Jordan? They doubled off Jordan to Pippen and then left him wide open. I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Yeah. And I think one thing that I noticed, I can't remember what game it was, but uh, it was one of those that Jordan hit a late shot, and I think Brian Russell was. I mean, he was probably guarding him, but the inbounds play was just it was almost a slip screen. Jordan set a back screen and didn't even touch anybody, and still there was nobody within 10 feet of Jordan when he got the ball. It's like, you lost the game obviously, but I mean that's almost giving it away, is letting him get the ball that easy. I mean, let Longley get the ball, for a layup. That might be a little lower percentage shot than Jordan at the last second.
That's one of the things watching, going back, and obviously we only see clips, but from a critical eye, you watch things very different than now than what we did back then. And, just those little things that you pick up where you're like, oh man, like what are they doing? Like, what are these teams doing? And
Yeah.
just because the game has evolved so much and the understanding of the game and the film breakdown and stuff has changed so much. But I mean, even, and then watching in 10, I was like, why, if you're Ron Harper or Pippen or Jordan, every time you have Stockton or Hornacek on you, like, why are you not going down into the block and just posting those guys up? You mean tell me that Ron Harper couldn't have scored over top of Stockton every time down there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just one of those things where you would see now. I mean, they would, obviously the NBA they're the best at exploiting mismatches, and they would have taken full advantage of it. Now, obviously, anybody guarding MJ is a mismatch, and so I get where they're coming from. But I mean, there are just trips when you totally key in on those and take advantage. And like I talked about the doubling off of MJ, I mean, that's just not happened. I mean, full denial. He's not catching that ball without something going on. And so they're just those little things that you see now that you're like, oh man, I'd be interested to see how things may or may not be different, depending on the eras that you look back at.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, players of Jordan's caliber nowadays you'd have to run some type of a set or a motion to get them the ball. It just wouldn't be that easy. I would be very interested to talk to one of the coaches or somebody that would be honest with you and say, why did this happen? Like, were you just going to let him bury you and see if he could, if he would make the shot? Because chances are he's making that shot. So it was really funny to watch that, just because that's the first thing I noticed when I got the ball. I'm like, how do you get the ball so easy? He didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
Nuts.
No, and one of the other things too that when we talked about it is they keep kind of like trying to make excuses for Jordan, like, oh man, he's so tired. Like, he's played, 32 of 34 minutes and he's just running on E and like all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, again, when you're comparing with LeBron, I'm like, okay, this is LeBron, but however, I get that it's so different. We're talking about comparing eras and it's all different. And I just couldn't help but think about when they kept showing MJ in the last episode, talking about how he's wearing down, he's putting on E, the tanks on E. I was like, well, he wasn't smoking 3 cigars a day and, like up late gambling and playing cards and drinking who knows what. It's like, I mean, different eras, I get it, but I'm like, could you imagine maybe how good MJ would have been if he spent $1 million on his body like LeBron does? I mean, who knows? That's
and also, could you imagine if LeBron was at a casino till 1:30 in the morning before any game, not even just a conference finals or an NBA finals game like that? He would get crucified for that. Like, it would be incredible.
Oh, just absolutely just tore up for that. And honestly, probably wouldn't be able to perform either. I mean, those guys, you start telling LeBron to have a couple stogies and go stay up late playing cards, drinking whiskey, like, he ain't gonna come out and drop 38 on anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you mentioned too, there was a portion of these 2 episodes about Steve Kerr, and just his entire background, his entire timeline is very interesting and very kind of out there. I guess he was he made it sound like he almost didn't get a scholarship to play basketball in college. Arizona kind of swooped in at the last second and offered him. He said he didn't even think about it; he just accepted it. And then you're talking about winning NBA championships with Michael hitting a huge shot, and then moving over to the Spurs and winning some championships with them too. Like, it's just an incredible story, really.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that I guess I didn't understand about it is, how do you not have any scholarship offers coming out of high school and then Arizona throws you
Right.
one? It's not like, he ended up at Pepperdine or something. I mean, he went
Right.
to Arizona. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty big deal. And trying to remember, I think he had a pretty decent career, obviously, with his time in Arizona. And I don't know who or what the program would have been like when he was there, but then obviously got drafted and then traded over to the Bulls. And it's interesting too, because I guess I never realized that there was an overlap between him and Paxton. But obviously they filled into the exact same role. And I mean,
Yeah.
it made sense when he was explaining how that was kind of his role model, and
Yeah.
who helped kind of foster him, because they were what I remember, and even still feel like the exact same player, essentially.
For
Like,
sure.
come out,
Yeah.
heady players, make shots, like just play a role. And they both did it, obviously, to as good as anybody had ever done in the league. And so hearing that story was cool. And then obviously hearing the story about his dad
Mhm.
was super interesting as well. The one thing that I wish they would have dove in a little bit deeper was um, the real reason on why he's gonna take this job and leave UCLA to go over to just a war-torn country. I mean, they
Right.
touched on it a little bit, but I was like, that just doesn't seem like a smart decision. Obviously, knowing the results different, but I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I was a little confused on what the motivation behind that was.
But yeah, and even so, I think they mentioned, once in there that he was just, humanitarian, wanted to give back to the country that he knew so much about, or the area he knew so much about. But even if you go over there and Americans are getting, killed and shot, I mean, hindsight's 2020, like you said, but wouldn't you try to get out of there? I mean, it obviously is a hard thing to do if you're that, I mean, passionate about it. I mean, but that's just, I don't know. I thought same thing. Like, what are you doing over there then?
Well, the guy he was replacing disappeared like a
Yeah,
week
yeah.
before, and he was like, "Oh, it could have
And
been
he
me."
said,
Wow.
it was 5 days or whatever before he got there. It's like, yeah, it could have been you. So why are you still here? It's yeah.
Yeah, I
Maybe those kind of scholars think a little bit out of the ordinary, or maybe different than we do, obviously. But
No, I agree. I mean, it's a great story. It's interesting to hear. I think it just gives you more and more reasons to like or cheer for Steve Kerr. I mean, not that he's ever given you anything not to. It's just all of, even from his time, on TV to obviously now with the Warriors and stuff. It's just like he just continually says and does some really neat things where it's hard to root against that guy, and you just find yourself just rooting for him. And so it was cool. It was fun to hear that side of it. I think one of the thing too was with the start of 9 and why that went so fast, we didn't even talk about it, was talking with Reggie in the Pacers series too.
yes, yeah, yep. I remember that rivalry, the Bulls and Pacers, but I definitely don't remember the Reggie against Jordan, I guess, rivalry being that heated. I remember them getting each other's faces, but and it was probably, a lot of behind the scenes, Jordan walking off the court calling himself Black Jesus, and and all that type of thing, which a lot of this series was. But yeah, they had some battles. I think it was Jalen Rose. He said, I mean, we had a sick team, and he went down some of those names. I'm like, damn, you did have a sick team. Like, that is something I completely forgot about. And I mean, Jalen wasn't obviously bad, but they had a good team. They had a good squad.
They were definitely loaded, and especially for that time in the NBA. I mean, you look at the
Yeah.
Davis brothers and Rick Smith, and then obviously Mark Jackson and Reggie Miller and Jalen and Chris Mullen. I mean, they had some dudes. I mean,
Squad right there.
they ready to go. And
Hmm.
Reggie Miller, Reggie was nasty too. I mean, he was. It's funny. I keep saying it, and 9 and 10 helped helped solidify or helped me remember on why I wasn't a huge Scottie Pippen fan again. And then, but it also makes me remember, oh yeah, now I remember why I didn't like Reggie when he was playing.
Yeah.
Because he was obviously a villain to MJ. But then hearing, and I said this leading up to these episodes, was hearing Reggie now kind of talk and articulate how the relationship and how things go. I mean, I love listening to Reggie talk because he just has a way of being funny and being relatable, but then also kind of having that higher level where he's got that confidence that he talks about how that was the last time I ever referred to him as Michael Jordan. He's like, it was either Jordan or Black Cat or Black Jesus from then on. He's like, I was no longer like, this Michael Jordan.
So. Oh man. And then not to mention, how about Jordan call himself Black Jesus?
Yeah, just hilarious. I mean,
the epitome of confidence right there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, switching gears completely from really anything that we've ever talked about, but there was a complete episode about Rodman earlier here in the series, and he popped up again, obviously during the finals. Just after a game, skipped town and went to hang out with Hulk Hogan and NWO. I think that's who it was on I think it was Monday Nitro for WCW, if I remember that correctly. We were kind of talking before, but that was prime time wrestling days where Hulk Hogan was a bad guy. I think Sting was even with them, if you remember Sting. And yeah, so Rodman skips practice and hangs out with them for a couple of days. And it doesn't even seem like Phil Jackson cares. He just says, hey, he's got to be Dennis, and we know he's going to be 100% on the court, which I don't know. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But, from what they made it seem, he had a pretty incredible game the next game. So maybe it worked.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you said, we were talking about it before, and I remember Rodman coming out on Nitro that Monday night. And like we said, that was the wrestling heyday, at least for us. I know that obviously being a huge basketball guy, but we still all watch wrestling Monday night.
Yeah.
If you didn't watch wrestling Monday night, you didn't talk Tuesday at school, because that is all you talked about was
wrestling. The same with me.
And so it was huge, and that was in the peak of the NWO. Like you said, they were the bad guys, and even in the clips they showed him hitting Diamond Dallas Page with a chair.
Yeah.
I think the Wolfpack might have been forming sometime around then. NWO Wolfpack.
You're probably right.
With Razor Ramon and Scott Hall and all those guys. That was when it was in its heyday. And like we said too, like, remember Rodman coming out there and, as 7th, 8th graders, not even like it phasing us to the fact that, oh man, he just played an NBA Finals game last night and probably had a travel day or should be at practice or something, but he's out here hanging out with Hogan, and it was like didn't even dawn on us as fans back then, but now to see it, and like you said, he's like, distracting from who? Just you guys are the ones that he's distracting. He's not distracting from us, and
almost like he expected that to happen, which it. And the thing about it is like you said the same thing as I said, that I remember it happening, but I don't remember being like, oh, why would he do that during the finals? For some reason, in my mind, I was thinking he played the game, flew to do Monday Nitro, flew back for practice, probably flew back to do whatever it is, Nitro again, and then flew back for the game. It's like, that's not possible. How would that happen? But it is funny and really, really crazy to look back on that and say that really did happen. Like, is there anybody else in the league right now that you could say would potentially even do that?
Well, no. The thing with right now, and they kind of alluded to that towards the end of the whole documentary, but with social media and how things were going, you would know instantly. Like, someone would know Rodman was wherever he was within a half hour. That's just how. Let alone going on something that's the most popular thing in the world. They would have picked up on that right away. And so it's wild. Even when he got back and they were showing, I thought it was pretty funny, their publicist guy or whatever is like, yeah, there's 300 reporters out there, and Rodman has nothing to say. Like, that was kind of funny.
They had to sneak him out. He pulled away in that old long box pickup that
Yeah.
was real loud. That sounded like it was just too old to be on the road.
Yeah, that was good. Like, those are the types of things where I'm like, yes, show me more of that. Like, I
Yeah.
just want to see more of that and more of MJ, like, making fun of people behind the scenes and
Yeah.
jamming out to his diss man and stuff. So,
Yeah, for sure. But well, now that we're done, now that we've covered Rodman, let's talk kicks.
yeah, I had a lot of good ones. Obviously, in the first episode, we had the 12s, which are obviously highly respected from hoopers and shoe enthusiasts around the world. And he had the playoff 12s, so the black with white toes on. For a good majority of those are my favorite 12s. I mean, that colorway is just awesome. I just like the
Yeah.
black on white. They looked really good with those jerseys as well.
Mhm.
Um, and then the flu games, which are obviously the black with red. Those are something that is obviously forever going to be remembered as the flu games. I know a couple of the retros that came out had kind of like the sick face emoji on the tongue and stuff,
Yeah.
where it's the 2-3 and to represent the flu game. And so
Yeah.
those were pretty awesome as well. And then and then in 10 got to move into the 13s, which we talked about before we got on here. The 13s, I mean, those were just nice. I mean, they were different looking, they were cool looking. The hologram on the side was pretty sick, and then they were super comfortable as well. I mean,
Yeah.
that was something that those shoes pretty legit. And then finishing off in the last shots, obviously the all black 14s. I mean, we got a run there of the 12, 13s, and 14s, which is a good run for the Jordan shoes.
Yeah, and I never had a chance to play in the 13s, but we talked about before that probably like visually, those are probably the very, very top echelon of Jordans for me. Just love the way they look. Honestly, there's not a bad colorway, I don't think. And you said they were really, really comfortable to wear. With the when we get into the 14s, I didn't necessarily like the way those looked, and you said you played in them. I never have, and they maybe weren't the most comfortable, but and then we also got to the 15s, which make the 14s in my mind look like the greatest shoe ever released. But I mean, those couple of years, in the Jordan brand and the Nike Jordan series are very, very top. I mean, there are some nice shoes there, and not to mention the 11s before that. Those are some great years for sneakerheads, and they are still probably rolling in the dough from those re-releases and retros and stuff like that.
Yeah, when you look at you can slice it up in any 3-pack series that you want to, but I mean, if you look, you can go 10, 11, 12s.
Mm-hmm.
You can go 11, 12s, 13s in those Jordans. I mean, you could, if you want to go 4-pack, then fine, go 10, 11, 12, 13 on them. I mean, that run of shoes was just incredible. I mean, it's something, and even obviously guests on here before have talked. We got two guests that the 12 lows were their favorite shoes that they hooped in. And so, I mean, they're not alone, and we get that quite a bit on those 12s. Were pretty awesome. 13s, like you said, kind of colorways, and those were big too from He Got Game. Jesus Shuttlesworth or actually Jake Shuttlesworth going to the store and scooping those up. He had those. Denzel had those on in most of that movie, and so those were pretty iconic. And then obviously with MJ wearing those black and red ones, most of that playoff series against the Jazz are just iconic. I mean, those are something that you're always going to remember. And then we talked about the 14s. You only wore them once, but it happened to be the quote unquote the last shot. And so having him in those, I mean, those are in that picture. I saw that floating around a lot too. That today where they were showing that the last shot or whatever, and looking a little bit closer at the fans. Obviously, with that shot being in Utah.
Yeah.
was pretty awesome. Like you kind of look, you can
I,
just see the look on their face, and
I did the same thing.
it was awesome to look back in those, and obviously having those 14s on. And that was one of the things too that was kind of funny that we didn't mention with the documentary, when they're talking about once Jordan got the ball and they're like, what did you do? And they're all like, we just got the hell out of the way. Like
Yeah.
we
Yep.
knew we knew what was coming. We knew who was taking the last shot, as did everybody. And it was like,
Yeah.
Robin's like, I'd get out of the way.
Yeah. And even, there's a lot of talk, and he mentioned it too, that when he was driving by Russell, that, when he got past him and crossed him up, that he used his left hand to kind of push off, which if you're looking from his left side, so behind him, I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell how hard he pushed him, but then they showed an angle where it was from the baseline, I think, and you really, really saw that he barely touched him. Like, I mean, you knew that Russell was kind of tripping anyway, and so his momentum carried him, obviously. But there has been, since that game, a lot of talk of him kind of pushing off. But the angle that they showed from the baseline, I mean, I don't think he hardly even touched him.
I agree. I hadn't seen that, or they just haven't used that angle as much either, because I saw the same thing, and it was like his hand just like barely went.
It just grazed his maybe shorts. Maybe
he was already. They were both committed in opposite directions at that point, anyway. But yeah, because I remember too. I remember it being or feeling like it was a more of an aggressive push than it really was, because there really wasn't anything there, and not that it mattered. I mean, you're not going to call that late in the game anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a play on no matter what it looks like. And yeah, so it was interesting to see that, another angle, and obviously to relive that moment. And I think to talk about with MJ, the fact of kind of alluding to the fact of, should that have really have been the last shot? And I thought that was kind of interesting, because obviously we've all kind of thought about it. I mean, there was a certain level of coolness with him coming back and playing with the Wizards, and still being able to hoop at 39 or 40, however old he ended up being when he called it quits. But there's still something that would have been really cool about that actually being his last shot.
Absolutely, and that's what obviously a lot of people talked about then, but yeah, he just couldn't stay away. And obviously I feel like he thinks, or would, if somebody offered him a contract to come back right now, I think he would probably say yes, and I'll try. But yeah, and even to say, kind of getting everybody's viewpoint on that last year, where Jerry Reinsdorf called Phil Jackson and said, "Hey, you can come back if you want," and Phil said no. And to watch Michael watch that conversation and say that, hey, it was actually Phil who said this, and then Jerry said, "Hey, he made it sound like he was the one." Sorry, he wanted Jordan to come back, and it just didn't work out. And I think every party was committed at that point anyway. I feel like Jordan knew that entire year that he wasn't coming back. And yeah, obviously, Phil knew he wasn't coming back either. But yeah, to get back to your point, that would have been a nice ending to a career, to remember Jordan as hitting that shot and then done.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think we all still try to just have that, just remember Bulls Jordan, obviously. And, he did some kind of cool things when he was with the Wizards, and had the All-Star game where they should have won on that shot too, and ended up getting beat. But, and so it's hard. I mean, it's kind of, what do you do? But I will say one thing that I'm going to greatly miss is iPad Jordan. When they hand him the iPad and they let him watch something for the first time, like that is just
exciting.
that's always the best. Like, we should just keep doing that. Be like, "Hey, Jordan, did you hear what so and so said about you?" And hand him the iPad and just watch his reactions. Like,
like I had no problem with the glove. That's all he said.
Yeah, I had no problem with the glove. Yeah, those were just that was pure gold in the documentary. It's just being like, "Hey, did you want to hear what so and so said?" Because he does. And that's the thing too, where it's like, I'd be interested to see what MJ would be like in this social media, because man, talking about motivation.
Yeah.
He makes up his own stories. Like, what happens when Twitter starts saying stuff to him about his game, like, oh my goodness, like it would have been wild.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I guess, everything that we thought it'd be, obviously we talked about the very first episode. It's a perfect time for this documentary. With everybody staying home and social distancing and stuff like that, sports being, obviously completely absent. It was a perfect time, and I don't think it disappointed me, at least at all. Like we said, could have watched about 20 more episodes, but it was great. It was great to relive that stuff and, learn a little bit more about the behind the scenes and all that stuff. Like you said, the bus trips and stuff like that. So it was awesome in my opinion.
Nope, absolutely. It was much needed. I think sticking to the social media theme obviously just took over, just absolutely took over. Everyone, made a spectacle of it. I think a lot of people was like, hey, Sunday night, like you would schedule your life around The Last Dance, which is awesome. Just shows the impact of it. It gives us a chance to relive our childhood in the mid to late 90s. And so it was great. It was awesome. We would obviously take more. Did you see where they talked about possibly they're going to do game 6? They're going to release game 6, I think Wednesday.
Oh, really?
Going to play that whole game 6 Wednesday or something. I thought there was going to be something else special with it. I just saw a little bit about that today. So I'll be interested to see. I'll gladly watch that again any day.
Man, 100%. 100%. That'll be, now I have something to do on Wednesday night, so that's awesome. Thanks for letting me know that.
Yeah, I was just playing around it. Jordan's just a gift that keeps giving. I mean,
it is, man. We could, let's just do all of his top games and start from that one. Just keep releasing them every week, and we can just make this a thing every week. I'd be okay with that too.
Well, they did on the golf side of things. They just had like Tiger and Phil commentate and rewatch their Masters victories. We didn't obviously have the Masters,
Yeah.
And so if we could get a little MJ commentary watching the game back, oh man, just hand him that iPad and be like, all right, here's the game. Let's.
I think you got a good idea here. Let's work on a pitch to ESPN and send that off here in a couple of days.
Be like, hey, get him to commentate. Be like, what were you thinking on this possession? Oh man, I was thinking there's no way this dude's gonna guard me. I mean, they're gonna get to the rim. We're gonna set up for a jumper.
Good stuff. But yeah, it was an awesome series, man. We've had a lot of fun, reliving this stuff, as we said, and reviewing these episodes. We appreciate everybody listening and watching and stuff like that. And we're going to come back with a couple more really awesome guests that we have planned out. But obviously, as we always mention, we love to hear from you guys. So find us on Instagram and Twitter at Shooters Touch IA. On Facebook, all you gotta do is search for Shooters Touch. We have a gear store open right now for a couple more days. So I'll post that in the comments below. So check that out. We'd love to see some people wearing Shooters Touch gear out there. And like I said, we appreciate everybody reliving this stuff with us. And as usual, always remember, shooters shoot.